So I want to compare fisheries stock assessment to medical diagnosis. So when you go to the doctor, they'll collect data on your health. So this might include taking data on your heart rate and your blood pressure and your temperature. And just like doctors, fisheries stock assessment scientists take data on the health of a fishery. So we take data such as catch, the amount of tons of fish that are harvested each year in the fishery, biological data such as the proportion of males and females in a population, or the size or age at which fish might become mature or able to reproduce, and also the size of the catch in the fishery. So we want to know if most of the fish that are caught are very small and might not have reproduced yet, or if they're very large and might have reproduced several times. And so basically, this data tells us, we'd use this data in models to tell us if fisheries are healthy or sick, if their populations are increasing, decreasing, or stable. So just like a doctor will give you a status report on your health, fisheries scientists give status reports on the fishery. So this information comes from the U.S. Fisheries and Aquaculture Organization. And so they've looked at all the fisheries assessments in the world, and they found that 13% of the world's assessed fisheries are developing. So they're underexploited, and there's still room for more exploitation to be sustainable. 57% of the world's assessed fisheries are fully fished. So these are sustainable fisheries, but any extra harvest rate might make them unsustainable or overfished. And 30% of the world's assessed fisheries are overfished. So they have lower biomass and higher harvest rates than might be expected to produce a sustainable population. So the bottom line here is that seafood isn't doomed, but stock assessment is important in order to apply good management to identify areas that need improvement. So just like a doctor will give you a treatment or a cure based on your ailments, fisheries scientists look for symptoms and apply the proper treatment or management. So a possible symptom might be we're seeing too few fish in the catch. So the catch is less than previous years. So a treatment might just be to lower the catches in order to rebuild fisheries. Another symptom might be that we're catching fish before they can reproduce. So a treatment might be to enact minimum size limits. So for example, with Pacific halibut, they need to be at least 32 inches in order to be harvested. So a lot of fishermen might use very large circle hooks so that the smaller fish aren't able to be caught because they're too big. And this will only catch fish that are large enough to be harvested. Another symptom might be that non-target species are accidentally caught in the nets, trawls, or long lines. And treatments might be gear restrictions. So for example, with salmon, we don't want to harm wild endangered salmon. So we used barbless hooks. And this is so that if we accidentally catch a wild endangered salmon, we can easily release them without much harm. Another example is with sea turtles. Trawlers are required mostly to use turtle exclusion devices so that if a sea turtle is caught in one of their trawls, they can easily escape, whereas the target fish are able to be caught in the nets. And then the big thing is that stock assessments are largely limited to developed nations and commercial fisheries. So places like the United States and Europe and New Zealand have a lot of stock assessments, so a lot of data to understand how our fisheries are doing. So this is like if you have access to an MRI, this will give you a lot of data on your health. But MRIs are not available in all areas. So if you notice the blue and green areas of this map, there's very few stock assessments. We know very little about the status of those populations in South America, Africa, Asia. So my research is going to be looking at coral reef fisheries data in the Western Pacific to better understand, basically to use these data that haven't really been applied in assessments before to better understand the status of those fisheries and kind of figure out which areas are in need and what management could be applied. And so the bottom line here is that we need the stock assessment, we need the diagnosis before we can apply the cure or the proper management for that specific problem. So that's all I have. Great.